Hello, welcome to John's D&D vlog. This is episode number 19, and we'll be talking about Module B1 in Search of the Unknown. As usual, as always with these module reviews that I do, please, if you're a player, don't watch this because I'm going to be giving away stuff that'll make your experience less fun. So please don't watch this episode any further if you're a player. In Search of the Unknown, Module B1 was published first by TSR back in November of 1978. And was included in the very first version of the basic D&D box set. This is the set that was edited by Dr. J. Eric Holmes, and the module was written by Gary Gygax's friend Mike Carr. Those of you who don't know pre- and early D&D history, you probably haven't heard of Mike Carr before. Gary met him when he was still a teenager, and Mike made a few games for TSR in the very beginning. Two of them were Fight in the Skies and Don't Give Up the Ship. For a while he was also the general manager of TSR Hobbies. I always believed that B1 in Search of the Unknown was the second module TSR ever published. After, of course, The Temple of the Frog, as it was published in the book Blackmore by Dave Arneson. A little research, though, taught me differently. First of all, there seems to be even just a little uncertainty over the word module itself, right, over the terminology. Some call stories that are published as part of a greater work, like Temple of the Frog was a part of Blackmore, right? They consider stories that were published as part of a greater work. They're still scenarios and they're still adventures, but they don't call them modules, right? They reserve the word module just for those adventures or scenarios that are published all by themselves as one standalone product. But anyway, for me and for this vlog, I'm not going to be that picky. I'm going to call any story, no matter where it was published, a module. So anyway, according to my definition, Temple of the Frog is still the first module. The second one TSR published, though, is in fact not B1. It turns out G1, Studying of the Hill Giant Chief, came out previous to B1 by several months. Nevertheless, B1 is still one of the first monochrome modules that was published by TSR in 1978. So let's just start talking about the actual module itself. This module is really odd. There really aren't any other modules like it that were ever printed, right? Not by TSR anyway. The room numbers are all listed in Roman numerals instead of Arabic. That took some getting used to. Also, the treasure and monsters for each room isn't written down in most instances. I guess when Mr. Carr made this module, it was considered to be a training module for new DMs. In the back of the book, two charts were offered, one of monsters and one of treasures, and it was the DM's job to go through those two lists and choose which monster and which treasure to put in which room. So if you're in a hurry to get a module up and running, this one might not be the one for you. More prep than usual is required to run it. Anyway, because you can put anything anywhere, B1 is in effect more or less just a monster condo. In B2 there was a definite flow to the story. It started out small and got bigger as you went on. Then there was the big skeleton zombie priest fight at the end of it all. In this module there's not much flow, or if there is, it's because you the DM put it in there. The background history to Quasqueton, the stronghold in this module, is very good. There's no current story there, though. So there's not really anything for your players to interact with, except the monsters, right? So perhaps to run this module well, you shouldn't consider it as a module at all. In my mind, the module S3, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, has a similar problem. There's no story for the players to interact in. Instead of running it like a module, you should instead see it more like just a setting that the players can come to, and they can come in and leave as they please and interact with it as much as they want to interact with it. One more thing, the room descriptions are all quite long. It's well described. It's a creepy place. They did a good job explaining it. But in the room descriptions themselves, there's no distinguishment made between the text that you read to the players and the text that's just there for you, the DM. So in a way, you have to really have studied this module out well before play begins. Were I to really make a good quality DM's guide for this module, I would take the description text for each room and divide it up into like player descriptions and then DM descriptions, right? Unfortunately, there's no way for me to do that legally. I can't make a DM's guide that will solve all your problems on this one. So I highly suggest that you do it for yourself. Once again, it's a training module for new DM. That was what it was originally intended to be, so let's cut it some slack. It was a well-intentioned and perhaps even needed experiment back when D&D was new, and when all is said and done, my players really enjoyed it. There's a lot of really cool atmosphere in the story, a lot can be done with it. Anyway, when I first took a look at the module, I didn't completely understand it all. I grabbed it and was getting my game prep done for a game that I hoped to start later on that day. Then when I saw the empty monster and treasure blanks, my head just kind of went blank for a second. Instead of looking at the back of the book, I just assumed I was free to do as I pleased. So I did. I did what pleased me, and it was a lot of fun. So anyway, everything from here on out has nothing to do with the module as it was originally published. Instead, it's all going to be about how I changed the module and turned it into something that I personally could feel enthusiastic about running. So I looked through the module for a toehold somewhere. What little aspect of it was something that could give me the inspiration I needed so that I could write a story that my players could interact with, right? I found what I was looking for in Area 8. Area 8 is the wizard's workroom. In it, the players can find a jar within which is a cat that is preserved in some sort of a fluid. If the jar is open, though, the cat will jump to life, jump out of the jar, and run away. The wizard Zeliger was into magically preserving life. So, okay, good. That was all I needed. So I immediately began pursuing that theme of magically preserving life. So I immediately began filling the module up with little boxes, little glass boxes all over the place that had experiments that he had been working on previously. So up on the first level, everything was pretty small. It was mice and hamsters and chickens and pigs, right? But the deeper you went into the module, the larger the creatures you could find that were in suspended animation within these glass containers. So, okay, good, that's a good starting point, but what could I do to make the module even creepier? So I decided to make half of these animals within these containers failed experiments, right? So if an animal had turned bluish purple while inside the container, when the animal was freed, it would function wildly for one round, and then in a frenzy of screaming and flailing of hands and appendages, the bluish purple creature would dissolve into a puddle of bluish purple goo. So cool. That's where the creepiness comes from. But then what would have been the logical end of all these experiments Zeliger had been up to? Why was he doing all this, right? So of course he was trying to make himself immortal. So what would an evil wizard do while he was learning how to do this? How would he continue to increase the quality of his experiments? So anyway, once he had experimented on all the animals he needed to, he began to practice on humanoids, and then humans. So all throughout the bottom level of the module, you'll find these glass boxes with humanoid monsters inside. Bugbears, orcs, gnolls, kobolds, all within these glass containers, half of them bluish purple, half of them healthy. So as the players explore the bottom level, they have the choice to open any container they wish, but the monster inside will come out fighting. If it's a bluish purple, it'll fight for one round and then melt away. If healthy, though, it'll be a full fight. So how do the players deal with this? That's up to them, right? So what then would be the final culmination of all of this? How bad can bad be? So Zeliger's final experiments were on his friends. That's as bad as an evil wizard would go, to experiment on your friends. So Rogan and Melissa. So in the bottom level, in room 55, the only other room with an exit outside, the players can eventually encounter Zeliger himself sitting at a desk frantically trying to find the final solution. In glass boxes to either side of him are his friends. Rogan, he was well preserved, he is in perfect health, you open his box, he's going to be fine. But on the other side of him is Rogan's love, Melissa. She's bluish purple. And if her box is open, she'll die an almost immediate and extremely gruesome death, right? So anyway, Zeliger has been spending every day, all day long, for years on end, sitting at a desk in this room, trying to figure out how to fix Melissa. He's not going to open up Rogan's box until he can figure out how to cure Melissa. And Rogan is currently unaware of Melissa's condition. If Zeliger opens up Rogan's box, does Rogan immediately, unwittingly open Melissa's too? So he might accidentally kill her? Anyway, it's all up to you, the DM, to decide what will happen. I kept Zeliger's level relatively low, 7th. I also put 15 barbarians on the first level, all of them chaotic good. They've come to Quasqueton to get revenge and to take over the place if they can for all the evils Zeliger did to their people. Anyway, if your party can befriend them, then they get to use the barbarians as cannon fodder as they investigate the rest of Quasqueton. We had a lot of fun. In our campaign, Melissa's box was opened and she melted to death in front of Rogan. All my players were sufficiently creeped out. The players that I was playing with at the time, a bunch of 8 and 10-year-olds, right? Elementary school age kids. I really creeped them out. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this module. It's got a lot of possibilities. You can look at the module and think, oh, I have to do all of this work, or you can look at this module and say, oh, I get to do whatever I want to do. So your attitude is the thing that's going to change the module for you, right? And if you've got a good attitude, you can have a lot of fun. Well, anyway, I guess that's enough for tonight. Have a good week. Have good games. Have a nice day.